Hey, hello students. Welcome to one more problem of System Verilog series. In this problem, we will be studying a concept of polymorphism in System Verilog, how you can implement it, and this is also widely asked interview questions in many System Verilog design verification interview. So make sure that you understand this concept very well. All right, let's start the problem. So here we are given a problem statement, and let's try to understand what this problem tries to say. So in this, you are given a partial protocol checker with three class named base driver, AHB driver, and APB driver. So you are given a three driver class. So as you also can see in the right hand side code, you are given three classes: base driver, AHB driver, and APB driver. And now, as we read further the statement, your task is to implement getProto function in all three classes so that virtual dispatch works correctly through both derived and base handles. So the class to implement is base driver, declare a getProto as a virtual function returning base. Then they are given that ASB driver is extended from a base driver in which you are again supposed to implement the same function getProto, but it should return a AHB, and for APB driver it should return a APB. So guys, what it is trying to like say is what you need to do is you have three classes. One is base driver, one is AHB driver, and one is APB driver. Now you are supposed to implement a function named getProto, firstly in a base driver class, and that function that you will be implementing should return you base string when you call that function. Similarly, in the AHP driver, you should implement the same function again, that is getProto, and when you call the AHP driver getProto function, it should return you AHB. So by the way, the get proto stands for get protocol. So as we're using different protocols like AHB, APB, so we have declared the name like as get proto. And similarly, inside the APB driver, uh, you are again supposed to implement the same function get proto, but when you call the function inside APB driver get proto, you should return APB string. So the function you are supposed to implement three function in three different class, but and the three different functions should implement three different kind of class names, that is base, AHB, and APB. So and if we read further the statements inside the initial block, we are calling the function string a check string, and should when we call below line initial begin, it should return me AHP handle and not the base handle. Okay, so what this line is trying to say is, so we had already developed a complete test bench for you so that you can easily verify the piece of logic that you would be writing in this classes. So in this initial block, as you can see, there's a function check string. So check string is simply checks the uh, it's simply just you can treat this function as it will call this check string and it will just compare whatever is expected and whatever is actual, and depending upon whether your pieces of logic is correct, it will pass or it will fail. And as seen in line number 56, here also you are supposed to write some code at line number 56 and at line number 51. So because in polymorphism concept, so, okay, so first let me explain you why we use polymorphism in DV, in test benches or in any projects. So generally the polymorphism is used when you want to call base class function with the help of I mean when you want to call a derived class function, that is, let's say if you want to call a function that is declared inside this AHP driver, but that you can call with the help of base driver handle instead of AHP driver handle. So why we use polymorphism is you can you can do this without changing a code. So let's say in a real project or in a real SOC, you might be having a class that let's say a base driver, and let's say now you are having some protocol that is a AHP protocol, and you are just extending this driver with a AHP driver, right? So here in the base driver, just assume there would be a simple method which is doing some operation. Now inside AHP driver, you need to override that method such that it translates to AHP related operations, right? So you're not supposed to change the original function inside the base driver. So the only option that you have is you need to override that function in the derived class, right? And similarly, let's say if you have one more protocol that let's say APB, so you do the same thing in APB, you just extend this class from your base driver and then you just override the particular function that you want to change. And let's say if this is a AHB, then it may be possible that it would be doing some AHB operations, and as this is a APB, so it would be doing some APB operations. So now generally in System Verilog, whenever you want to use any methods of base driver, then you use base driver handle. If you want to use any method of AHP driver, then you use base driver handle. And similarly, if you want to use any method of APB driver, then you need to use a APB driver handle. But in the concept of polymorphism, you can use, you can call AHP driver methods with the help of base driver instance as well. And when I say methods, I mean task or function that is implemented inside a class. So this is actually, you can say, a use case of polymorphism. So let's try to code this problem. So as you can see in this problem, you're supposed to implement a function named, let's say this, get proto, right? You are just, and the function return type would be string. And here you should just return base. And here, right, and similarly, you are supposed to implement one more function inside AHP driver with the same name, but it should return you AHB. Similarly, inside APB, also you are supposed to implement the same function, right, which will help you to fetch APB. So now, uh, so if you study the test bench, what the test bench is trying to do is at line number 48, 49, and 50, you are just creating this object of this classes. Let's say AHB driver, you're just declaring, you're allocating some memory to AHB driver, APB driver, and you're deriving and you are taking instance of base driver. So now at line number 55, what you are actually doing is you are calling this check string function. And what does this check string function does is it accepts a string. It it also, then you have two more arguments, that is got and expect. So right, the last argument is the expected value. The second argument is what is the actual value. So let's say in our case, the AHP object dot get promo. Let's say if you just do AHP object dot get promo. So at line number 56, if you can see here, if you just do AHP object dot get promo, so it will, what it will do is it will call this class. It will fetch this function and it will return me AHB, right? So it should simply return me a AHB, and so this 56 would be replaced by AHB, and it would be get compared with this one AHB as we are pass. This is expected value that we are passing, and as you can see in this logic, if your got is equals to expected, then it will simply pass, or else it will fail. So let's say similarly for APB, you are also checking this. So from line number 60, there comes a concept of polymorphism. So till there, now it was just the normal classes that you generally use. At from line number 60, what you need, so what we are expecting here is, see, here you are just printing base handle, right? At line number 65. And here also and here you are supposed to write some piece of logic, that is write your code here. So what does that mean is you need to implement some code here to execute polymorphism. Even you can see from the problem statement left hand side, when we call below when we call below line inside initial begin, it should return me AHB handle and not the base handle, right? So what does that mean is this is the line given, and this line exactly matches with line number 65 here. And when you call this line, it should return. So generally, when you do base dot get proto, it should just return you. It would just normally return you base. But in this case, we are not expecting base to be returned. We are expecting AHB to get returned, right? So you are calling. So in order to do this, what you need to do is you need to kind of change the base handle, base head equals to AHB object, right? So you are just kind of, you can say, upcasting you are just assigning the AHB object to the base handle. So now the base handle points to AHP object. So when you do base dot get proto, so when you do, let's say, base class handle dot get proto, it won't call this, it will actually call AHB, right? And similarly, here you are supposed to, at line number 68 also, you are supposed to write some code, and as it is written in the problem statement, when we call the line inside the initial begin, it should return APB handle and not the base handle, right? And this string exactly matches with this string. So in this case, you are just supposed to pass the APB stuff, right? So you're just supposed to pass the APB stuff. So this will be a code. And one more thing that is most important in polymorphism is polymorphism will only work if you declare any function as virtual. So in the base class, you are always supposed to declare a function as virtual if you want to implement this polymorphism concept. That is, if you want to call base handle and print child class, then you need to compulsory declare it as virtual. Without declaring it virtual, it will simply just print base class handle. So now let's try to run the simulation. Great. See, our code passes, and there were six test cases. All the test cases passed. And as we just discussed that the virtual keyword is compulsory. So let's say if you don't declare virtual function here, then let's see what happens in that case. In that case, what should happen is whenever you call get proto with the help of base driver handle, it should always return you base. See, it is just showing me test 3 and test 4 passing, fail, TC3 and TC4. So when you see TC3 and TC4, right, this is TC3, and what it does is AHP driver via base handle. So here when you call base handle dot get proto, right, it is you're getting base instead of AHB. You're expecting AHB, but you're getting base. Similarly, at TC4 test case, you're expecting ABB, but you're getting base. See, why the reason the test case is failing is because you're expecting APV and you're getting base, right? So that's why you need to compulsory declare here the keyword virtual to implement polymorphism. So uh, make sure that whenever you want to implement this concept, you always declare this keyword in the base class function. So that was all for this problem, guys.